Hey, what is going on, everybody? Isaac Mashman here, and welcome back to another episode of Chase the Vision with Isaac Mashman, the podcast, the show that is all about helping you become a more capable individual through sharing my experiences in business, life, and personal growth, and also the experiences of other people in the interview series. And today, have a really phenomenal guy who I had the opportunity of networking with through Facebook, David Schloss. Now, the more I got into his background, the more I came to understand, who he actually was and what made him different from every other guy online selling stuff. Was a big reason why I wanted to invite him on, because you already know where I stand when it comes to the whole Facebook marketing space. He runs a digital ad agency called ConvertROI. He's been doing this for over a decade, and that right there is just a factor that's going to split you from everybody else. David, brother, thank you for coming on today. How are you doing?
Everything's good, man. Can't complain. I mean, when business is doing well and your team's happy and the family's happy, it's like, what else is there to worry about? It's everyone's
100%.
good. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, there's so many different things and avenues that we could go down, but I want to start going and digressing and talking about your past and where you came from. Now, you're originally from Miami, Florida, so we're both Floridians, so that's probably why we're both a little crazy. Tell me about growing up in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, the first 5 years of my life was spent in Miami. I was born during the time where, Hurricane Andrew came through in like 92, I believe it was. My brother was born in 93, so a lot of it was just like my parents were just getting by. We weren't at that time, at least, we weren't exactly even middle class. We were low middle class. My parents were working as hard as they could. My mom's a nurse. My dad was a lawyer. But it's not like they were at the top of the chain, right? They were still figuring things out. And, basically I was just along for that ride. And my family at the time, my entire family, my mom's side, lived down there too. So, when my parents weren't working, I was with family and vice versa. I was constantly around family. And so we lived down there for the first 5 years of my life before moving to Broward County, specifically Sunrise. And then I was over there for a couple of years before moving to Plantation, which became my home all the way up till college. So I was, born in Miami, but I was raised in Fort Lauderdale, if you want to look at it that way. But it was definitely one heck of an experience because people down there are insane. They were just as crazy back then as they are now, because it's such a melting pot of different people. And
Mhm.
so, you'll run into anyone from New York, New Jersey, all the way to Cuba, Spain, Colombia. It's all over the place, right? So you're going to be indoctrinated to all sorts of different cultures and personality types, and you just got to be able to handle it. That's the main thing. It's so much. And now it's almost too much, right? Which is why I don't live there anymore. But
Mhm.
it's one of those things where you can definitely get one heck of a learning experience just being down there.
South Florida is one of those places that now is becoming the next LA, and not with a lot of the politics and a lot of the the way that it's governed, but more so just people are viewing it out of this mentality of this is the place to be, and
Mhm.
to a degree they're kind of right. Like Miami and Fort Lauderdale has a fantastic energy, but super high paced.
Yeah.
And definitely has its drawbacks. Now, being around all of those different cultures and things, do you think that kind of helped and played a benefit maybe looking back and you getting started with business and being able to handle clients from different backgrounds, because that's another thing that people don't talk about. There's a cultural difference, of different people from different countries even that can really affect, maybe their views on respect or their views on how you should be handling the business or what they should be doing and the client expectations with the person providing the service. So how has that affected that?
Yeah, I basically learned how to talk to different types of people through my experience being in South Florida, right? From the different cultures to different personalities, uh, different ways of respecting people, right? Respecting your elders, respecting different levels of,
Mhm.
managerial positions, like all sorts of different things, right? Because my parents weren't exactly the entrepreneurial type back then. They had their jobs. And so a lot of what I was learning was, respecting your boss and how to talk to different people in the workplace and things like that. But what I really took in the most was just how certain people are communicating with each other, right? And I didn't just learn that in school. I learned it just from watching my own parents and watching my friends' parents and how they talk to certain people. Because
Mhm.
I'm very much an observer, right? I can look at what's going on, take in what I see, and then sort of turn it into whatever I need it to be, so that I can use it in my own way in my life.
Mhm.
And so I would see how, for example, my mom would communicate with her boss and how certain things would be done a certain way with her boss versus when she was talking to people around her, because she was basically top dog in her office,
Mhm.
except one level below the boss, right? The
Mhm.
main doctor. And so she had her way of interacting with people around her until it got to the head honcho. And then that was a completely different way of handling things, right? So I was able to observe those things. Doesn't mean that I just subjected myself to being like, I'm here and he's here. It was more of just, okay, I could see the difference. I could see how, she's one way over here, one way over there. How she talks to people is very different. And I would take that in and go, huh, okay. So I need to have one personality over here, another personality over there, and I have to learn how to mold them together. I'm not two different people. I'm the same person, but maybe I'm a little more energetic with these people and a little more slow pace, take it in, listen only over here, right? So I would take that and just really feel it out, and just see like, okay, does this make sense to me? Can I apply this in my own situation, so on and so forth.
I think in business, we almost have to be like water. And that sounds super it's kind of weird to say, but you think about water, whenever you pour it into a container, it molds and it goes into whatever shape that container is in.
Yeah.
And a part of being an entrepreneur and dealing with different clients and client expectations is about being that water to kind of fit that expectation or be able to go into those different situations that you might have at one point not thought that you were going to be into. And that's definitely an interesting conversation to have. But growing up, going to school, lower middle class, I can definitely relate to you on a lot of those different things. What kind of student were you? Were you like a really great student, kind of an average student? And did you have any entrepreneurial aspirations while you were within, elementary, middle, and high school?
Yeah, I was an A student, A+ A student. A lot of what was told to me when I was young was that study hard, work hard, you'll get everything you want, type of thing. And for me, studying wasn't difficult. Like memorization is easy, but taking in that information and using it was the hard part. So I had to transition learning dates and stuff. That's cool. That only goes so far, right? That's why it's like, yeah, I'll pass history, I'll pass science. Like, am I really using any of this? Not really, but I'm memorizing enough to get by. What I did take in and utilize a lot was mathematics. When I did finance or accounting or anything that revolved around numbers, I found myself just soaking it in and then using it all the time. And this started in elementary school. And I remember I was telling this to my dad because I was like, why is it that I'm so great at math? I don't even have to study. Like, I don't have to study it. It's just automatic. But then other things, I would have to spend hours just soaking it up as much as I could, just so I could pass the test. But I would never remember any of it afterwards. It's like, all right, got my A, and then it's just erased. There's nothing there anymore. And that same thing happened to me in college too, but it dated all the way back to elementary school. And I just found myself being really good at studying and memorizing, but I would really remember the stuff that I enjoyed. So I enjoyed math. When I got to middle school and high school, my middle school and high school actually had different levels of finance type classes, accounting and whatnot. So when I did those classes, I remembered them in detail, every single thing. And I started to develop business and entrepreneur aspirations at 13 because I was stock trading under my dad's name while in school. Because I was just so good with math, I'm like, I could figure out charts. I could figure this out. I remember turning on CNBC one day. This guy made millions of dollars making a trade, and I was like, I could totally do that. I know I could figure this out. So I got obsessed with charts and numbers and reading different types of points of history that related to certain things happening in the market. So I found myself going, either I'm going to do this as a profession or I'm going to do this on my own. So that was like the beginning of me going, I'm going to do my own thing in a way. Either I'm going to work for someone on Wall Street or I'm going to start doing my own thing. And it's all going to be incorporated one way or another. And all throughout high school, I actually found myself I started putting myself in entrepreneurial situations. I would come up with ways to sell things. I sold, trading cards. I sold sneakers. I would do all sorts of eBay related stuff back then. I would constantly flip things before it was even a hot topic. I would just be like, I'm going to take this. I'm going to make an extra $20 on it. No big deal. And I was just doing that because that's how I would make money. I didn't have a regular job in high school or college. I was doing online stuff all the way back then and just flipping things or, doing some sort of paid gig online and then just moving forward with that. So I was already in that mode without even recognizing it. I was like, oh, I'm just making money here and there. Right. But I didn't realize I was doing it for me. I was doing it as a solopreneur. I was just going for the money at the time. Right. It really kicked in at 18 because when I went to college and then I realized I'm just in the same path of memorizing everything. I'm not really here learning. I'm just memorizing getting my grade, and moving on. That was when I realized I need to do something that I actually enjoy because I really don't want to work for someone. I already had a couple jobs and I realized that I would either outpace the people I was working with. So I felt like I'm just lagging behind. Like, what am I here for? Or I felt like the boss just didn't let me keep going. It's like, okay, you've hit a point, you're an intern. That's all I want you to do. Sorry, dude, I don't do that. I don't stay in one spot. Like I got to keep going. Right. And I just found myself constantly being like, why am I here? So that's when I realized at 18, literally within my first 2 weeks of being in college, I started my agency and I had no idea about what I was going to do with it, what I wanted to promote. I just remember going down the rabbit hole of looking up how to make money online on Google for 8 straight hours, didn't sleep. And I was just doing research around how you can make money online, paid blogging, PPC management, SEO. I was doing a little everything in the beginning because back then you had to have an SEO portion of your business and you also had to know design. And WordPress back then was so new. So if you learned WordPress and you understood how to do the SEO portion of it, you were making a killing. So those were the first two things that I learned before I even learned ads. I learned ads as I was going, but I understood SEO and design very quickly. And so I just decided, screw it, open up an agency. I'll help out people locally because there aren't that many agencies in my college town at the time. And we'll see what happens. And that was the beginning of me being like, I'm going to do this on my own. I'll see what happens. I'll make some money. If I enjoy this, I'll do this long term, but I'm at least going to do this for the next 4 years and see what happens. The SEO design part wasn't what I really wanted to do. It was what was making money. The PPC side was the part where I'm like, I like this. I could put $1 in and make 4. I could put $1 in and make 2. Like, this is great. All I need
money. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, let's do that. But Facebook was new. MySpace was still around. Twitter, all these networks were new, or at least they were popping up as I was still in college. But Facebook's network was the easiest one to get into because it only required a couple bucks to start. And then that was the beginning of me just continually running ads on Facebook until eventually the platform became what it is today. But those first 4 years running ads on Facebook it was a ghost town. It was so difficult. There weren't courses, nothing. So my entrepreneurial side was just like, how else can I make money? Because this isn't working yet. And I just kept evolving that until one day, pretty much by the time I graduated, that's when Facebook really started to take shape. And I was able to turn it into a full-time business after that.
Interesting. There's so many different points that I want to like kind of pinpoint and break down. One, you mentioned that the things you were studying were the things like that they were trends. It was history, right? You were maybe paying attention to what led this country to doing that, which led to their, demise, which is ultimately understanding human psychology. And that's exactly what your business is, right? Understanding how to break down sales copy, how to break down ads. Is this person going to click on this versus this? Where am I positioning the button? Where am I putting the link? Am I adding a picture? It's all human psychology. And that's a lot of my business as well with personal branding and public relations. It's understanding human psychology and how can we bridge the gap between the consumer and the business. And that is one of the most powerful and important and overlooked. I think that is honestly overlooked. The entire aspect of psychology in business today, it's all about, let's go ahead and start up a Shopify store and let's go and start up Amazon FBA and all this other stuff. And they fail to understand that if you don't have something that is going to really connect with a person on an emotional level and to where they can actually relate to it or want it or have that desire, your business is going to fail. And let's kind of talk about that too. Let's save that for a couple questions later on. But I want to talk about, you're in Gainesville, Florida, at University of Florida. That's the one university I applied to that I didn't get accepted to, but it didn't matter because I didn't go to college anyway. But that is a predominantly college town. Like they're a bunch of old people, or you have a bunch of rednecks that are there for their entire life, or you have college students. And so it's not like a very business. It's not a business town. It's also a pretty good party school, right? And so, if I remember correctly, your first year, you pretty much just partied the entire thing, got dropped out or kicked out of the business school, and then you graduated with a degree in tourism or something like that. Let's talk about your college years.
First semester, I partied the whole time, the entire time. Just for reference, if anyone follows college football, that was when Tebow was there.
Okay.
It was also when the college basketball team won back-to-back championships. It's very difficult to focus when everyone's just constantly winning. It's like the whole school is just on fire. So no one was thinking about academics. Everyone's like, when's the next game? No joke. That's all the talk was about. When's the next football game? When's the next basketball game? When's the next baseball game? Because the teams were just winning constantly. So you have no attention on your academics unless you just don't like sports. Unfortunately, I love sports. So it was constantly in my mind of like, when's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one? And as a student, you could pretty much go to everything for free. So I was going to everything. And I just took the whole first semester to basically party because I got integrated with roommates who were already in school. I was the freshman, but I had a sophomore, two sophomores, and a junior I was living with. We were in college apartments because good luck getting a dorm in a 50,000 person school when it can only hold 10,000 people in dorms. So basically, I got integrated with older guys. But the great thing about them was they were like, you're cool. So like, we're going to let you get involved in everything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And by default, I'm like, great, I'm meeting more people. And so what if I'm a freshman? Like no one knows. It's not like it was like immediately told the people that I was. They just assumed because I'm living with these older people that I'm an older guy, right? Cool. It was automatically, it was a great situation. But I was just so into the fact that I never partied or anything when I was in high school. The minute I got to college, it was like I could do whatever the hell I want.
Right.
So it was easy for me to be like, let's do that, let's do this, and meet these people. What I was really doing was using that personality driven way of like integrating with people. I was doing it at a hyper speed in college. I was just meeting as many people as I could because I was doing that here and there in high school, just learning and getting more involved with different industries and learning from those people. As soon as I got to college, I'm like, I need to get more friends. I need to be in more of their circles and see what's going on here. And that's all I did. So yeah, I went to school, but I wasn't really paying attention because I was thinking about the next move. All right, what's the next thing I can go to? What's the next event I can go to? So on and so forth. So that whole first semester, I basically almost lost my scholarship. I had to get a 2.0 just to get by. But in order to keep the level of scholarship I had, you had to have a 2.5. That first semester, I did so bad, I had a 2.3. So I'm like, okay, nice kick in the ass. Let's get back on track. Now, in order to stay in the business school, you needed to have a 3.0. Anything below that, you get one semester to recover or else you're kicked out. So I went from a 2.3 to a 2.9. I missed by 0.1. They didn't even give me a chance. They just kicked me out. So when they kicked me out, I said, in a way, this is probably a good thing. Why? I'm already building this agency. I don't need a degree to prove to me I could do this. But what's the next best thing that I can do, considering I live in Florida, that actually could benefit me long term? Tourism and hospitality is the biggest industry in Florida. So let me just get the degree in that, because it's they call it like the secondary business school, because you're learning the same principles. It's just you're not getting a business degree. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So I'll get that next level of business school education, but I'm going to learn online marketing because no one in the entire school understands online marketing, which was true back then. From 2007 to 2011, there was not one person I met in 4 years that knew online marketing other than me. And I met a lot of people. So I would start implementing different online marketing tactics and strategies in my business papers. And I would enter competitions and all the judges would be like, I've never heard of this before. I would win business competitions against business school people and they had no idea what I was talking about. So that's when I knew like, I don't need that degree anymore. Right. So I'm just going to get what I'm going to get by. I ended up graduating with a 3.2. Like it was pretty decent recovery, still partying, still meeting people, a couple internships here and there, but I was working online, getting by with what I was doing with clients, working with a local lawyer, bike shop, the tutoring school, like all these different things, just making 500 here, 750 there, $1,000 here, just getting by. Didn't have to get a job. I was just doing that. And that was enough for me to keep going. But it was great because that experience of almost losing my scholarship, I didn't want to lose that. But getting kicked out of the business school was what I needed to go more in with the agency. Because I feel like if I just kept going in the business school, I was in finance, I was going to work on Wall Street. This was my projection onto myself. I'm going to be an investment banker. I'm going to work on Wall Street. But at the end of the day, I realized I don't want to be an investment banker. I really just wanted to trade stock. You don't need to get a degree for that. But I didn't realize that until after the fact. And so in a way, it's a blessing that I messed up because now I'm here today.
How big was your first deal that you closed?
First deal was $750 a month. It was with a real estate company. They did primarily property management, but they also had some realtors selling and helping people, the buyers and sellers. They worked with me for 5 years. So just for
Wow.
the sake of understanding, like they were my first client and they didn't leave till 5 years later, and I let them leave. They wanted to stay, but I told them they need to go because I was no longer offering SEO at that
Hmm.
point. I was like, look, guys, you basically have dominated all of, Southwest Florida. Like, you don't need me anymore. Like, you're good. And I'm going to move into PPC only. So there's really no reason for you to work with me anymore. They'd still be working with me now if I didn't move away from that service. That's how great they were as clients. But they were 750 a month. Most of my deals back then were 750 a month or $1,000 at the most. I didn't understand the value of certain services, so most of what I was doing, like let's say if I collected 750, I'd end up using about 400 of that to get the whole service executed, and then I would keep 350. Right? If I was $1,000 gig, I would probably spend 500 to 600 of that and keep the rest. And all it was math. How much time are you putting into it versus the output? What could you pay for to get things done faster? Rinse and
Hmm.
repeat. Right. What ended up getting me in a weird situation was when I had about 8 clients in college, and I was handling everything myself. And then people wanted to start having phone calls with me every week. And I'm like, I can't do that because I still have a full schedule. Right. But they didn't know this. They just thought, oh, this is a bright kid. He's 20, 21 years old. Like, he's killing it for us. He has no problem getting on the phone with us. Right. Well, yeah, I have a problem because I can't get on the phone until 3, 4 o'clock in the
In the
afternoon,
morning. Oh.
or I have to do it
Yeah.
really early in the morning. And good luck doing 8 of those every week. So it started to become a bit of an issue while I was in college because I'm like, I'm going to at least get this degree because, hey, if I need a fallback, at least I have one. Right. But once I was out, it was easy. Even then, I had a job just for a year and a half because I wanted to, put some money away and really just make sure I wasn't just going paycheck to paycheck or deal to deal. And after that year and a half, I realized I was taking client calls while I had a job. I was taking them on lunch breaks. I was taking them after I would leave work because I had to drive 45 minutes to an hour to go home. I was taking calls then. I was taking calls before going to work, and I made it work. But it was so difficult and it was stressful. Driving in traffic at 8 in the morning, taking on a call, having to remember everything I'm going to say,
Hmm.
and then say it to them, and then rinse and repeat this every single week. And I'm like, this is not what I want to be doing. I want to have my situation at home, have everything in front of me, have a team. But it was something I needed to go through. And so, yeah, it kind of gives you an idea of like the progression of the types of people I was working with.
I think that progression is normal too, because I've went through something very, very similar over the past couple of years, from the time that I would launch my first freelance gig to doing it as a sole proprietor to launching the company to bringing people onto the team. And it's been virtually identical to that. And so, the more people I talk to that are in that space or that are doing something similar with building an agency type business model, right, internet services, it seems like almost everybody has that start unless you find a mentor that saves you all of that time, which I'm glad that I didn't go and latch onto somebody because I was too cocky. Like, I'm like, I want to go and figure this difficult part out myself. And if I could go back, I would do the same exact thing. But what's not talked about enough is landing your first client, getting your first gig. And a lot of my clients that I've worked with, some smaller deals, just helping them out, helping friends out, they've been trying to structure pricing. They've been trying to get their first clients. They've been trying to, they're just starting out. And right now online, everybody's talking about the person who's already had the agency for the past couple of years, who's already in scale, and not giving enough insight into landing the first client. What would be your number one tip for getting, like, let's say you're just starting out, maybe just trying to figure out your packaging, and you're looking to get your first $1,000 gig? What would you do?
Yeah. So my first client, the reason why I was able to sign him on one call was actually because of a referral. Now, I had no experience, no case studies, no nothing. Why was I referred to this person? This friend of mine had a conversation with his buddy who owned that property management company. And he's like, hey, man, I'm really trying to build this thing and I don't know what to do. Like, we're stuck, like, we're not growing at all. I need someone who can look at this and tell me what we need to do. And for some reason, I came up in his mind first. Why is that? I had so many conversations with so many people around the fact that I'm doing online marketing that it stuck with them enough to go, oh, I know a guy, right? Because I talked about it enough. Now, did I have to back it up? Of course I had to back it up. So when I had this conversation, I mapped out a whole plan for them and then I executed the plan. I think where a lot of people mess up with getting their first client is, they automatically run PPC. And by PPC, I don't mean Google. I'm also talking the social ads too. They run Facebook or they run Twitter, and they just assume I'm going to run ads. I'm going to sign somebody.
Hmm.
There are so many agency owners now who don't even understand the basics of an ad strategy. So when they go into a call, they sound stupid. They really do, because you are saying all the wrong things. And I know this because I have people come to me who want account audits and they want strategy audits. And I look at what's been presented to them and I'm like, who's the person you're working with? Because this is like intern level. Oh, this guy who's been doing this thing for 3 years. What? Like, this doesn't make any sense. How much have they actually studied? Most of these people are not studying the craft. They're in it for the money. So they're doing sales and they're doing sales very well, but they can't back it up. So then it gives agency owners a bad taste in their mouth and it makes us look bad. So agency people realize that, at least they should realize this. When you are talking to a business owner, you are basically giving them the entire strategy up front and making them realize they don't want to do it. That's all it is. I will give you every single thing that I'm going to do for you and you'll never do it. And because you're so blown away by it, you're going to hire me to do it. That's how it works. It's that simple. And if you have enough conversations with people, whether it's in your family, their friends, you go to a couple of events, you talk to people about what it is you do, naturally, someone will be sent to you through a referral. Naturally, someone's going to want to have another conversation with you. Person to person is the easiest way to close your first client. Why? You're there. There's a connection automatically.
Mm-hmm.
How you not weird people out the first time you meet them? Don't just immediately go in there and start talking about your business. Find the connection. Okay. Whether your personalities mix together, maybe you like something similar. A lot of the people that I work with, they like basketball, or they are an event hopper like me. We go from event to event to event. So we talk about all the events we've been to, or we've been to similar destinations. Oh yeah, I went to Spain. I went to Ireland. Tell me about your experience. I find things to connect to them. And then I'm like, hey, we should continue this conversation. And by the way, before I go, is there anything I could do to help you? I didn't say anything about business till the end. Is there anything I could do to help you? Yeah, I actually need some help with ads. Let's do an account audit. Give me 30 minutes. I'll just do an account audit over Zoom. I'll tell you whether or not you need some help. And if you do need some help, I'll just tell you what to do.
Yep.
And once again, when I tell them what to do and I blow away them with all the stuff that they need to do, they're like, can you just do it for me? It is not difficult. People are just overcomplicating it. So more conversations lead to more potential clients. It's that simple. If you want to be someone who doesn't talk to people and you want to just run ads, then find someone on your team or build something with someone who's great with people and have them do all the selling. Have them be the communicator. But then you need to be great at executing the plan. So are you the doer, or are you going to be the person that's out there shaking hands?
I knew I didn't make a mistake bringing you on once you're talking about, and you're giving away the secret sauce. And it's not even a secret sauce. It's just what most people don't want to talk about because they feel like they're making competition. I don't care about making competition. I want competition. It puts fuel underneath my fire. It keeps me going. You gave away literally everything that somebody needs to do starting out and also looking to scale in order to close clients. And so guys, if you're an agency owner, you're somebody starting out looking to get involved with the space, even in these principles apply in network marketing. These principles apply in, building physical products, the whole 9 yards. Every aspect of business can benefit from what he just said. And so David, you covered referrals, right? I just landed one of the highest tier clients I've ever landed within the past week off of referral. The referral, he's getting paid 20%. He's happy. He's sitting. He's good. He's good. Providing benefits and helping his referral out, everybody's happy. Referral-based business is like almost like a forgotten form of marketing and building a business because everything's gone online and they don't realize that you can still build a referral-based business offline and online. Like they can go hand in hand. So that right there, becoming the first person that you think of, right? So your friend was having that conversation with the realtor about, who do you know in the online space? David Schloss, first person to come up. And that's happened too with personal branding, right? You were branding yourself as a person at that time. Not only, just as that kid who's probably the party goer, but, a conversationalist. And so your personal brand in college was starting to build and develop, and like you were giving attributes and pinpointing what I want to go out and talk about, what I want to, talk about in a conversation, what I want them to think of me as. And then from there, you were able to land the first gig and continue going with it. And the conversation aspect is so important because it's the same person who slides into your DMs and they try to sell you and you're like, I don't even know what you do. And they end up trying to sell you something that you actually already do and know. And that's the funniest shit ever.
I'm going to add something to that because thank you for mentioning DMs, because these are probably the worst DMs I've seen in a very long time.
Let's talk about it.
So I get pitched every day. Okay. And this is not to brag. Okay. I have a Facebook page that's verified and I got an Instagram page that's verified. I'm basically a target for people to pitch me. Why? Because they assume by default that I'm just going to blow money on whatever it is they're offering. Oh, you're verified? Let's make you more money. That's the assumption, right? So on Instagram, I am spammed 5 to 10 times a day. Facebook, at least 2 to 3 a day. Not a lot on Facebook. People know that I will just block them and move on. Now, I randomly DM people, but I don't just randomly DM them with a pitch. I follow them and then I interact with their content for a month before I ever say anything to them about business. And what I'm really looking for is, what are they talking about? What are the connection points? Are they even active? If they're not active, where are they active? Are they active on LinkedIn? Are they active on Twitter? I'm trying to find where they're active. This was how I met one of my good friends who's in the investing space. I noticed that he's very active on Instagram and he was 1 or 2 posts a day on Facebook. But because he seemed to be more engaged on Facebook, I made sure that every time he posted, I was in the comments. Every time. Writing something to follow along with it, praising him, whatever. Instagram, he would just post, but I'd rarely ever see anything after that. No follow-up. Okay, cool. So I don't need to be following him on Instagram. I really need to just see what's going on Facebook. For 30 days, I would just analyze what he talked about. Of course, he would talk about stocks and options and all that. But then I would find things like he would talk about his son. He would talk about basketball. He would talk, just change it up. I'm like, I like basketball. I like stocks. At the time, I have a newborn. It's like all these different things. And I'm like, great, I have talking points now. So every time he talks about these things, I'm going to add more value to that post and praise him simultaneously. And then naturally, one day I just hit him up. And all I said was, hey, man, if you ever need help, like running some ads, because I haven't seen any ads from you, just let me know. I'd be happy to let you know what you need to do. Won't cost you much. I won't charge you for the time. I just feel like you could be doing a lot more. You already make great money, but what if you just put $100 a day towards some ads? You'd probably be making 2 times more. That's all I said. And I waited. And he answered the next day. And I'm like, fantastic. And all he said was, you got a calendar link? You're in. Once you're in my ecosystem, you're not leaving. Like, now you're there. All I did was just add value for 30 days. And then I dropped the hammer, which was like, boom, you need to run some ads, man. What's going on here? I haven't seen any of your stuff, because I did research on them. There were no ads running anywhere, anywhere. This guy's already making millions of dollars. I'm like, what if you just put $100 in, bro? You'd make extra sales every day. What are you doing? And that's all I had to do, was just throw that little extra in there. I'm sure he got pitched every day by other people. I was the only one that didn't pitch him the first day that I followed him. I just waited. That was it.
Let's talk.
Now I talk to him every day. Like, now we're friends. So yeah.
Well, let's go and talk about how I got you on. It's the same exact thing. And I'm okay with telling people, because that's another thing. How do I get guests on my podcast? That question right there, it's you're coming to them as somebody who's viewing the person on the other end as some god, right? It's like the person who's on the other end of the phone is some greater than thou individual, to where you're not viewing them as your equal. And when you go into conversations, especially with guests, like going back to being pitched every single day, that also means being pitched to be interviewed, being pitched on podcasts, being pitched for products, being pitched for partnerships, collaborations, investments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just very simply shot you a DM and I was like, hey, seen you in my feed a few different times. I saw that you were thinking about doing a podcast interview. Let's go and talk about, getting on. Shot over some information. I'm not over here just trying to, follow. Hey, how about that interview? How about that interview? How about that interview? And here we are, right? Having a conversation. And that's really the way that you can be handling your business or your podcast or your career as a professional versus a hobbyist, or versus being an unprofessional. Because I've had one person, he just shot me a ton of DMs, and I told him that I wasn't interested, and he shot me another script. And I was like, what's 2 + 2? I literally asked him the question. He replied back with a GIF, and he's like, I thought there was going to be like some question or follow-up. I was like, no, I'm just making sure that you were a real person, because I just told you I'm not interested, right? And it's like, you need to pay attention to the small little details, and that emotional rapport that you can build with somebody naturally. For example, paying attention. You have kids, right? You post a lot on your Facebook about, your son, and about, your personal life, which is not anything to do with your business, yet you're still landing clients and you have people hitting you up. And that's really a unique thing, because you haven't made a post on Instagram on your page since I think 2019, yet it's still active, it's still growing, and it's still engaged. And that's super different because you're not one of these guys. It's David Schloss here to make you a millionaire in 2 minutes, like buy my course. You're not doing that to me. You're not doing that to anybody.
Nope.
So what is the methodology behind that strategy? Do you plan on changing it? What's the outlook?
Yeah, I mean, I have tons of content in my vault, so to speak, that's going to be coming out. The whole reason why I hadn't posted in 2 years is because I found myself, at least I found this way of interacting with people. When you post, you are opening up an invitation for others to engage with you. That's what you're doing, right? You post, comment section's open, people are going to start engaging. Who you want to engage back with is up to you, because you could look at the comments and go, I like this, I'm going to respond back, right? It's just back and forth. And same thing with DMs. If your DMs are open, someone messages you, you don't have to answer all of them, but every now and again, there might be something in there that you're like, I like this, I'm going to answer back. So what I did was I just started interacting with a bunch of people that I wanted to do business with, or at least people that I admired. And I was like, okay, I'm going to follow them and I'm going to interact with all their stuff. That's it. I'm going to DM them when they do something funny through stories. I'm going to, they put something up about their kid. I'm going to laugh, or I'm going to cry, or whatever. I'm going to put up all this stuff to just interact, because now the more I interact with their profiles, the moment that I put up something like a story, they see it. I actually come up a lot quicker in their story. As long as they, follow me, I come up a lot faster in that little, strip at the very top of Instagram. And so I would just wanted to make sure I was in front of them, so that when I do post something, I'm there. I'm automatically top of feed. And I just kept the engagement going. Now, at the same token of that, people were doing that to me, because I would post stories and they would interact all the time. And I'm like, good, because now I know when I'm finally ready to sell something, these people are going to buy too. They're going to support the cause. So when I launched my book last year in the middle of the pandemic in April, I just put out 4 or 5 stories about the book being out on Amazon. And then I would repost all of the people who said they got my book, because they were posting on their stories like, hey, got your book, man, it's awesome. So I would just repost those. And I did that for weeks. And I realized that all these people were paying attention to my stuff, and I had never posted content. They were paying attention to my stories the whole time. They were paying attention to my stories because I would post those and I'd interact with them, and it would just be a lot of back and forth. I sold 3,000 copies of my book on Amazon with no marketing plan. I was just posting stories and reposting other people's stories. That's all I did. And it's because I built rapport for years, and I never self-promote, never. And when I do, people go, oh, this must be important, because he never does this, right? It's very rare that I put up something like buy my stuff. And even then I don't say that. It's like, I just released this, worked on it for months. If it's super helpful to you, I'd really appreciate you, checking it out, buying it for your team, buying it for yourself, buying it for a family member or a friend. It's super helpful. I know this because we use it every day, right? And I just make it very indirect, and people still buy it, right? So that's how I've approached business in general. It's like, let me help you. You want to help me? That's cool. I'm not trying to cash in any favors, because I know that at some point when I'm ready to cash in those favors, those people are going to be ready. And I didn't even do it with the book launch. I just put it out there to see how people respond. And so that's what I've done on Instagram. It's just like post stories, interact with other people's stories, interact with their feed posts, and then just have conversations even through DMs, because now I can just open it up on my computer and just chat through the inbox. It's so much easier to keep track of things without having to do it all from my phone. So, it's been a lot easier to organize it all. And that's why, some of my biggest clients have actually come from Instagram, and they see I never post. I'm just interacting with their stuff all the time. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yet the results do the speaking for you. Now you're super heavy on case studies, and that's something that I've never put together like a firm portfolio case study, and that's something I'm working on. What would be your tip for somebody starting out a case study, or developing one? What are the do's and don'ts, or what are some things that you would include versus not include?
Yeah, the more detailed, the better with a case study. So when I was very active with case studies, I posted for 2 straight years, case studies every month, sometimes 2 in a month. And I did this because I wanted people to see the level of detail that I put into campaigns. So I would break down the case study just like how I'd break down a campaign, right? How much was spent, the clicks, the leads, the purchases. But I'd even talk about how many audiences were tested, how many pieces of copy were tested, how many images or videos were tested, the methodology behind it. Like, were things tested one at a time? Were they tested in bundles? How often were things tested? Every couple of days? Every bit of detail I could provide, I'd provided it. And I found that the more detail you put into this content, the more people are wowed by your level of attention to the detail, that they go, I want that. I want someone who puts that level of attention into their work, because then that means that they're doing it in the best interest of what I'm giving to them to promote. Specifically from an ad standpoint, if you just gave me a link and said, go promote this, that's fine. I could still figure out what I need to do. I could still watch your presentation. I could still go through your VSL or whatever it is you're giving to me, your e-commerce store. And I could still come up with a very in-depth plan, even if all you did was send me a link with no context, because I'm that good at coming up with the detail I need to then come up with a campaign and a plan. Some people need that customer avatar document. You know what I mean? Where it's like, here's 5 pages I need you to fill out. Good luck getting your clients to fill that out. You're practically going to have to sit on a phone call for an hour and fill it out for them. So what I do is I just tell my prospects and my clients, like, send me what you got. I'll figure out the rest. Just send me everything you got. And what I realized is when I started to put the extra detail on it, when I sent them my findings, and here's what I'm going to do, they were all saying the same thing. Holy crap, where'd you get all this? There's a lot of stuff. I didn't even know we targeted those people. Like, these were all things that I developed on my own just from looking at their ad reports and doing research on Google about them and all that stuff. So I noticed that when I put that level of detail into the case studies, that's when, once again, overdoing it, because now people are like, I want that. I would just overdo the detail. Someone would come to me, they would hit me up through, the DMs or inbox, and they'd go, can you run that style of ad campaign for me? I have a webinar too, or I have application funnel too, or I have an e-com store too, because that's the thing. They were looking for patterns. Oh, this is an e-com case study. I'm going to pay attention to this. This is applications. I'm going to pay attention to this. And that's what I was focusing on as well, is like, what am I promoting? And do I want more of those people? So if I wanted more webinar clients, I put out webinar case studies. And then people with webinars would go, I need that. Can you help me out? So, more detail, the better. But then also, is it the type of client you want to work with? So if you put out a case study with dentists and you hate working with dentists, you're just going to attract more dentists. So don't put that case study together. I know you have a dentist client. That doesn't mean you have to do a case study on it though. Right? You can still get a testimonial that says you're awesome. Don't put a case study out. Right. So I made sure to keep it broad enough to where it wasn't too industry specific, but it was more based on the strategy. This is a webinar. This is an application. This is phone call, straight to phone call. This is e-com store. Then I would vet the industries after the fact, and I'd be able to pick and choose.
A lot of what you're talking about is honestly common sense and not taking shortcuts. And it's like, I think for some reason now, I guess it probably is partly to do with the guru culture. Everybody thinks there's this secret sauce, the secret ingredient that's going to make your business just blow up with the snap of your fingers. And dude, so since I'm launching my business and going through the motions and working and just figuring things out, I've realized just how much of life and business is based around common sense, and how much everybody else encourages you to overlook the common sense and find and seek this one thing. It's like what is it, like the fountain of youth, right? All the Spanish explorers looking for the fountain of youth, and that's kind of all the entrepreneurs looking for the fountain of success. And it's like everybody's running around. Meanwhile, we're over here, we're like, okay, the true fountain of youth is don't eat like crap and work out. Okay, so we're good, and everybody else is focused over there. The real way to become successful is to just listen to your gut, have common sense, study the right people, and then take action. And everybody else is over here looking and following, the crusade of Grant Cardone and Ty Lopez. And don't get me wrong, I love both of those guys, but it's like there's a crusade cult following behind a lot of these people. And to a degree that's good, and to a degree that's bad. Man, it's been such an honor having you on, and I love a lot of the tips and what you've been talking about. So what's next for you? Because I know that we talked and had conversations off the scenes. You got some things going on. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I'm expanding more into the education realm, because I had not taught much in the last 14 years of running ads. Don't get me wrong, I've consulted and coached people along the way, and every time they all say, when's your course coming out? When are you going to write a book on this? When are you going to open up a community? Whatever it's going to be, right? And at the time, it wasn't really in my deck of cards, so to speak, of like something I wanted to pursue.
Right.
Because of what was going on in the last year, I had realized how many people were one step below needing an ad manager, that they could have still done things on their own, because I talked to way too many people who were just on track to eventually hire someone, but they weren't quite there yet. And they needed that extra push through either another strategy or a way of optimizing their campaigns, or just learning how to do it the right way, to where then when they grew enough, they can hire an ad manager, which naturally would end up being me. right? I'm just buttering them up to eventually come back. But in reality, it was like, why am I not putting more stuff out? Why am I not educating more? I have the experience now and the trust with the community to where if I put something out, it's going to be no BS, right? You can't question what I've done. It's been 14 years. If it was bad or if it was a lie, I would have been kicked out a long time ago. So naturally, I'm like, okay, I think it's time for me to put something out. I did a pre-launch of my, clicks conversions clients course, which is turning into a community, and it did well. No one has refunded. No one has said anything bad about it. If anything, people are still going through it because of the amount of content in there. And it's all based upon where you are in your journey. If you're a newbie, start here. If you want to scale, start here. You want to hire media buyers, start here, right? So like everyone's on a different journey. And so I developed that course late last year, launched it early this year. It's been doing great. We're retooling it now to make it more of like a full community where everyone's working with each other, helping each other out. What's going on in your world that you could share, what's going on in your world that you could share, right? So that way it's more of like community driven, like this is what's working, right?
Mm-hmm.
That way you're not having to guess. But at the same time, I'm keeping it up to date. It's constantly up to date. Instagram changes something, give me a week or two, new lesson. Facebook changes something, give me a week or two, new lesson, right? And it's because I'm already testing it. When Instagram Reels became a placement to test on Facebook ads and Instagram ads, I started testing it, but I didn't release a lesson on it because I'm testing it. So give me a couple weeks, give me some data back, then I could post about it and tell you what to do and what not to do. I don't know many courses that do that. Something new comes out, they put out a video, they say, go do this thing. There's no data that supports they should. What if you need to give it 6 months before it becomes a good solution to run? That's happened before. When campaign budget optimization came out, I was telling everyone, don't use it because it sucks. And it was true. It was terrible for the first 6 months. Then Facebook figured it out and it started working. I told everyone, use it, do it now, launch everything with this because I waited for the right opportunity.
Right.
And I don't know many communities or courses like that. So that has been recently put out. We're retooling it. Like I said, getting a more community-based organization in place so that way everyone can benefit. And honestly, outside of the education part, I've been partnering with product creators and making sure that they have everything they need in order to scale. There's too many people I've worked with in the past that once they hit 6 figures, they think they're hot stuff. And it's like, I'm good. It's like, yeah, but you could easily just drop from 200, 300 grand in revenue on that model to just 80K. It's very quick because most of the time there's a systems issue. They don't understand how to scale the ads because they don't want to spend more. They think I could just coast at 40, 50K a month and I'm done. There's so many businesses I've worked with that have done multiple millions of dollars that didn't happen until they started to spend 6 figures a month, right? Because they realized like in order to get to that next level, there's going to have to be some sacrifices put in place in order to make this happen. So I started partnering with more product creators, or at least we're still developing what that would look like, because I know exactly what needs to get done on the advertising side. But I've seen this so often as to what needs to be put in place on structurally internal in the business that I'm also working with them on that. Oh, you need a better copywriter. Oh, you need a junior media buyer for when we're not helping you out. You need this person and that person. Like we're basically building their infrastructure so we can do our job and help them scale to multiple millions of dollars. And then we're basically becoming a partner in those opportunities, but we're very selective with that because I don't need 50 clients. I don't. I'd rather be partners with 4 or 5 really good opportunities, good people, and then we'll take care of the clients that we love. But you don't need 50 or 100 clients. You just don't. If you have pieces of multiple deals that you can help scale, you will make 10 times more than having a bunch of clients, period. And there's no better feeling than watching an opportunity that you have helped build hit millions of dollars and knowing that you own a piece of it, that if they decided to sell that business, you get a piece of it too. That's the big game. And I've had multiple friends of mine do that where they own a small piece, 2-3% of the deal, and they come out with $400,000 or $600,000 from something they only put a couple hours a week into because they helped it scale. And then everyone's happy, right? And I have a friend who's literally his whole business is like, give me 5% of every deal. And he has 30 deals on the table right now that he's helping scale with his team. And he's like, we're setting up all these companies to be sold. You're telling me this guy's not going to be worth 10, 15, $20 million in a couple of years? Of course he is, because he knows what he's doing. So when you start to see stuff like that in my network and people talking about it, it's a sign. And so we're moving in that direction, working with solid product creators, not physical, digital, but then also making sure that I can educate people along the way.
And just because somebody wants to do business with you doesn't always mean that you should do business with them. That's, you told me
Exactly.
that you had to let go of some people. You said no to like dozens of people coming to you every single month just because we're not a good fit. But that, I think that's also where the, let's say the free content or the course or the book can come in, because now you're directing them and saying, we're not quite a good fit to work together, but I have this kind of stuff that you can also learn from, so you can still be getting value from me. And maybe in the future, if we circle back around and we decide that we are a good fit to work together, we'll have that conversation. But in the meantime, we have all that content, and that right there is the genius, structure. But the difference is you're not relying on one course to drive your revenue. You're still providing services, and then the course is just kind of like the cherry on top, right? The cherry on top of the sundae.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have it wrong. They only have the course or they only have the book, and they don't have anything of substance. They don't have a vehicle behind it to back their methodology up. And that's why I haven't put out a course. It would have been so easy for me to sit down and do a personal branding course, but then what would make me different from every other dude online, right? And so that's why I'm like, okay, let me take the slower route to have the long-term success and build, the stronger foundation. So, David, where can people find you, and then where can people support you, buy your book, look into getting your course?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Facebook, my profile, facebook.com/Schlossy. That's my nickname. Everyone's called me that since I was in 7th grade.
Love that.
So it's SCHLOSSY. If you want to follow my Instagram, because I post stories all the time, it's instagram.com/David M. Schloss. And I'm on those two networks all the time because that's where I do all my business. Of course, you could search me on Google. You could see some of the podcasts I've done. You can find my other profiles, LinkedIn and whatnot, if you want to connect with me there. And yeah, I post everything on Facebook. So if you want to know what's coming out in the next couple of months, follow my profile. That's where I post everything. You won't be bombarded with offers at all. You got to pay attention to when I talk about something. But if you want to see what's going on in my world, that's where you'd follow me. And if you want to work with me directly, email me directly. So it's david@convertroi.com. And make sure you have a budget when you talk to me. No blanket, can we work together on some ads? Too many people say that and they have zero. Make sure you know what you want to do. At least give me an idea of where you want to be budget-wise. And then I could tell you whether or not I can help you. And if not, I know people who are great who can help you, right? So if you want to work with me directly, david@convertroi.com.
Phenomenal. David, brother, it's been an honor having you on, and looking forward to seeing what we could do too, behind the scenes. So
absolutely. I really appreciate it.
All right, guys, you've just got done listening to another episode of Chase the Vision. Be on the lookout for new monologues every single Monday, and then interviews with awesome people like Mr. David Schloss every single Friday. Much love.